And we're back. So, we pick up on a cold and rainy December day. The wind is blowing in from the sea and the waves are crashing against the shore of Portsmouth Harbour. This vast sort of mess of warehouses and buildings that is, at this point, possibly the largest industrial site in the world. This is the shipyards of the British Navy. This is one of the largest and most important coastal towns. Or cities, really. The wind blowing in across the Solent, rain lashing at people's faces as they kind of hunker down and make their way through to work. And one of these figures hurrying through the rain is none other than the detective, Lottie Shaw, who has just received a quite urgent and stressed out sounding note from a doctor that she knows a little bit about. He's probably helped her family out in the past. He's a fairly respected doctor in Portsmouth. And he'd sent a note basically saying, "Please come quick, something has happened," and gave you an address of a row of houses sort of down near the docks in Portsmouth.
Yes, Lottie would be on her way.
As you hurry down through the rain, you come to this small terraced house, steps leading up to the front door, and a few neighbours like peering out, trying to look what's going on, but not many given the rain. And standing just inside the doorway is Dr. David Evans. Case in hand, collar turned up against the rain. Detective Shaw. Thank you.
Yes.
I was told that you had some experience in the odd things. Few rumours you've heard, things that happen. You were asking questions about.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Since I was born, I'd say at this point, rooted in my history, I've got some experience with weird things. Yes.
Well, this one's.
What seems to be the matter?
Well, come in. This is it might just be a medical matter, but not something I've come across before, and I don't know whether I should be calling the police and putting this down as a murder, or I really don't want to bother them, especially after the incident the other month. They're not really friends of mine at the moment. I didn't know it was going to explode. It was a big misunderstanding.
No, I mean, yeah. I've botched an autopsy at this point, so I'd say I consider myself medically inclined.
Well, I was going to warn you. This could be quite gruesome. But,
I've seen worse.
Well, in which case, in you come. He leads you sort of down this narrow hallway, and as you go, there's a smell in the air. This burnt smell. Almost a mixture of like burnt tallow, like candles, and singed meat. And he leads you through into this little dingy sitting room, which is, the window's a little small, it's a little dark, but otherwise not an unpleasant room. A few ornaments scattered around, some little lace doilies, and by the hearth, a chair. And in the chair, the remains of what was presumably once a person. This burnt husk, this just burnt down to the bone in places, skin turned to ash. Nothing else is burnt. The chair itself is intact. The floor is intact. Just this burnt husk of a person sat in the chair. And as you look at it, I am going to ask if you would just mind giving me a little bit of a sanity roll here. Just Just a little one.
A little bit. Right off the bat, that's a good way to start the session. It's been a while. Purple or green? Purple, right?
Green, I believe.
Green.
Okay. That is a success. I'm just going to knock off 1 point of sanity here for general. Both the horror of the dead body and just this an unsettling oddness in the air. The smell of burning, this eerie quiet of this room, the ticking of the clock. It just sends a little shiver down your spine. That you thought you'd left the worst of this kind of stuff behind in London, and yet here it is happening on your own doorstep. But you're keeping yourself very put together. Well, yes, you see, I mean, I've heard of spontaneous human combustion, but I thought it was,
Well,
a myth.
Typically, from what I've read of spontaneous human combustion, the only things that are left are the extremities. I mean, the fact that there's even still a husk to be had betrays evidence of spontaneous human combustion, but even evidence of spontaneous human combustion, as you know, doesn't quite line up with what we think of. Who was this person exactly?
Sid Haskey. He was a retired foreman over one of the block factories.
Did he have any enemies, friends?
From what I can gather, he lived alone. The neighbour, Mrs. Braithwaite, was home. She apparently heard screaming and shouting, and came in to find him like this. Should I be calling the police? Do you think she might have killed him? Is this a murder?
Oh, very rare, if ever, does a criminal. Well, no, I don't think it would be her. I'm familiar with the Braithwaite family, I believe. I mean, they've lived in this town for a long time. I don't think it would be her. It wouldn't make sense for her to report something like this and not stick around. I mean, sometimes if killers want to be, odd or play a part, they'll stick around and play in the investigation. But if she just was a concerned neighbor, I don't see any reason to investigate. I mean, have you found any cigarettes, open flames, candles burnt down?
I mean,
fresh wax, and Lottie will go ahead and start walking around the room, and if there's any candles, she'll touch the wicks, see if they're recently burned or anything like that.
Yeah, you can see that there's a few candles with the wicks burnt down, but there looks like there was a fire burning in the hearth, so there were open flames in the room. This house it's not got gas lighting. It seems to just be lit by candles, a couple of oil lamps.
I wouldn't say it's that unusual with the amount of candles in the room, but the fact that nothing else is burned is the concern. I don't know if you're thoroughly familiar with what's been going on up in London while I was away, but
not really. I just know you'd been asking about drownings and whatnot around town, and it was weird, okay? And
yes, well, that's my concern, as we had on land drownings, and that's not an unfamiliar thing. Some people do drown on land after the fact. Water gets in their lung, accumulates, but I mentioned botched autopsies and things like that. We found evidence of specifically river water, and this water that came from almost nothing, and I'm curious, is there still enough of a person to cut into? I mean, we may want to get this into the morgue, and I've dealt with a family that's dealing with water, and now the fear that there's a family dealing with fire. I mean, naturally, with supernatural causes, you'd think the elements would be something that people are attracted to. They could have burned from the inside out, from all I know, based on what I've been dealing with recently. And she just kind of makes this like smile and laugh, like everything she's saying is just kind of a Tuesday for her.
And you could just see his face, on the other hand, just looking at you with increasing like mixture of like horror and also this deep uncertainty as to like, hang on, is she serious? Well, I'll take the body back and see if I can determine if it's a family using fire. But look, it may well just go down as death by unfortunate accident.
Yeah. Yes, well, a lot of things go down by death of unfortunate accident, but you and I both know that's not always true. It's just what needs to be written on the paper. So, let me know if anything else like this happens again. Unfortunately, there's not much to do. I'll continue to investigate the house. And do you know if Miss Braithwaite is home? I guess I suppose I should talk to her.
Mrs. Braithwaite's in. She's upstairs. Yes. Well, I must get on. I've got to get someone to pick up the body. I promised I'd go and see about a broken foot. Which I suppose.
Yes. Someone to move the body, preferably someone you trust, to the morgue, and I'll do some investigation, and if police need to be contacted, I can go ahead and take care of that myself. I know you're busy.
Okay. And as he departs, leaving you temporarily just alone in this room with this burnt remains of this man, you can hear upstairs someone clattering around, moving back and forth, creak of the floorboards.
Perfect. Before I go upstairs, I'm gonna look for books. Any kind of book at all that does not seem like a normal book is what I'm looking for.
Okay, I'll say make me a spot hidden check here. Okay, so looking around, that was a hard success. There's not really many books at all. There's a copy of the Bible, a couple of other books of common prayer, that sort of thing. Doesn't look like Mr. Haskey was much of a reader, to be honest. But
does the Bible have any specific pages marked or anything? Did they seem like they were worried or trying to?
Not really. There's nothing that leaps out. There's just a well-thumbed copy.
Household Bible, sure.
Yeah. What you do see is this. There's this few scraps of paper sort of on a table in the corner. Someone's sort of jotted down a few notes to themselves. Stuff like, buy milk. Go to the post office, that sort of stuff. But scrolled along the bottom of that is the green flame burns.
Okay. I'll take that note and I'll pocket it. And then I will head upstairs.
Okay, as you head upstairs, there's like a little door to the flat above in this building. You can hear a woman humming to herself as she goes about her day.
She's just humming to herself and going about her day?
Yeah.
I'm gonna observe her for a moment. That strikes me as odd, as someone who just saw a burned husk of their neighbor. Before I approach her, I'm gonna see, like, does she seem like there's at all any kind of anxiety, or is she just going about her day? Like, is there any kind of, like,
Give me a psychology
Empathy
check
type-
here.
yeah,
Yeah,
psychology.
yeah. Hard to be sure. She's kind of bustling around.
Sure. Okay. I'll make a knock at just whatever surface I'm near to announce my presence.
Come in. Are you? Oh, it's not the doctor. Can I help you, miss?
Yes, no, the doctor's quite busy. I am a detective hailing from London. I'm not here on official business. I'm just visiting family.
Oh, is this about poor Sid downstairs?
Yes, most definitely it is.
Awful business.
Yeah, rather unusual, don't you think?
Well, I heard an awful lot of screaming and shouting, and then, yeah, I think he must have, I don't know, caught himself on fire in the grate or something.
Yeah, it seemed like he was a man who kept, I mean, as most are, kept a good handful of fires. There was one that had been recently burning in the hearth, so that kind of thing does happen, but
Unfortunate things.
there was no smoke that alerted you to this. It was the screaming.
Oh, no, it's the screaming, definitely. I remember because I was just putting together a parcel to take over to my daughter's place, and then I hear this awful screaming, and then I go downstairs and he managed to set himself on fire. Poor fool. This is what happens when men live alone, you know. They can't be trusted to, lay a decent fire. They'll set themselves ablaze.
It does happen, unfortunately.
My late husband, if I so much as caught him near the hearth, I was... Yeah. Man could set fire to porridge.
Did your husband die from fire as well?
Oh, no, he drowned.
Oh. In a natural kind of drowning way, or a unnatural kind of drowning way?
Well, so far as anyone, drowning can be called natural, but, I mean, he was on a boat, boat sank. It was a storm. So that's as natural as it comes, really.
I suppose so.
God sends these things to test us.
I don't need to pry into your own personal business. I've just been dealing with drownings as well. Normally I would bat an eye at this case, but well, not bat an eye, but say my piece and move on. But I have been dealing with interesting drowning type deaths and things like that. So I thought it was worth investigating further. And my main question is, did you catch him and see him while he was still on fire? Or
no. There was just a smoking remain by the time I got down.
Did the smoke smell like any kind of chemical? From what I understand, there are.
You don't think someone did this to him, did you?
No, there are indigenous peoples in certain parts of the world who turn fires into different colors as part of ritual or for fun, or you can throw certain natural elements or chemicals into a fire and it turns blue or purple. I mean, did you notice anything of that? Did you smell any kind of chemical, or was the light that came from the flame any different?
I wouldn't know. I mean, there wasn't really any flame by the time I got there. Just a smouldering remains. Ooh.
How quick? I mean, it was rather quick for me to walk up these stairs. How long did it take you to come assist him after the screaming?
Only a minute or so. I thought first I thought it was a fox, you see. So
as one does, I'm sure. Detective Lottie kind of looks around.
Yeah, fuck the foxes at night, and it sounds like someone's being murdered out there. And I thought, it's the foxes, and then it carried on, and then I heard words, and I was like, probably not a fox. So
words. You heard words specifically.
And my knees aren't what they used to be, so it took me a little time to get down.
You said you heard words, though. That's the part I'm focused on.
Something about. I didn't really. It was just something about stop, help, and
stop.
Then a whole bunch of stuff that didn't sound like English.
Right.
I can't remember what that was.
Don't need to.
Awful lot of Z's in it. But, well, miss, I'll let you get in on. And as Moira seems to temporarily frozen, at least on my behalf, I think we'll get back to there in just a moment. Because whilst Lottie is investigating matters down in Portsmouth, other things are happening up in the bright lights of London. It is 4 days since the death of Sir John Wallace, and rumours are already starting to swirl around.
I'm back.
That's alright. We've popped up to London for a sec. We'll be back down to Portsmouth in a moment.
That's perfect. I get lost in thought. Words, strange things. Okay, perfect.
And yes, rumours have started to swirl around the city that, he was involved in bad business, that he managed to get himself killed, or that it was just, the natural death of a man who was, at this point, very old. Depending on who you listen to. But the crowd at this current party are probably more of the former sort. These are the sort of people who will take any hint of a mystery or an unknown matter and make it into something greater. These are the kind of people who really truly believe in ghosts and mediumship and the powers of the unknown. Which, as we have seen so far, they probably ought to. But it's a fancy party in a very nice part of London. And among the guests this evening are Lady Irene von Watts, renowned medium, and a stranger newly arrived in the city, a Mr. Zachary Carnegie. Now, the two of you don't know each other. You did not arrive together. And at the moment, you're both milling your way around the party. And are you the sort to be sort of in the heart of the conversation, where the bustle of the party is, or are you lingering on the edges? What are you up to?
Well, when you're important, the conversation tends to revolve around you. You don't have to go to it, it comes to you. Therefore, I am at the bar. I am enjoying a fine cognac, and I am deigning to smile when appropriate. Otherwise, I'm just having a grand old time soaking in the local color. It should be noted that Carnegie, and that's Zachary Carnegie IV, is a very slightly built man, very pale. He has a very small lapel pin that looks to anyone with occult knowledge, he's actually festooned in little ornaments of, maybe the lapel pin looks like the Templar cross. His cufflinks look vaguely like the Mason symbol. He's wearing a deep red evening suit, which sets him apart very much from the other guests. He's got short, close-cropped white hair. He has a pair of smoked spectacles on that he does wince when the lights get a little bright. His eyes are pink. He is indeed a full-on albino. He looks frail, but very handsome in his own exotic way. But he's currently drinking. He drinks very sparingly because it doesn't take much to get him good and loose. But for now, he's just kind of observing. If he hears talk of a famous medium being present, he, of course, will approach, because that sounds interesting.
Lady Irene is probably walking around the edges of the conversation, taking things in, being observant and watchful. seeing new people in town is always fascinating, and it always draws a crowd. I believe she's probably taken a seat at the far end of the bar, as people are naturally surrounding Zachary like hummingbirds, interested to hear stories. And she is just watching for the moment. Lady Irene is wearing the starkest of black. Everyone else is probably in bright, vibrant colors. Her hair has been pinned fully back. The only thing of note is probably the brooch that she wears on her neck.
Okay. So as Irene is sort of watching Zachary, a couple of people have come and gone and tried to like get him involved in conversation. Oftentimes trying to, fund the project or get some some of his interest in whatever their current obsession is.
Mm-hmm.
But currently, two people are sort of in his vicinity. One of them is another medium, Madame Valérie Lecroix, who I believe Lady Irene may have crossed paths with before.
Mm-hmm.
Who is currently sort of settled beside Zachary. Bonsoir, Mr. Carnegie, was it?
Yes. Pleased to meet your acquaintance. I don't believe we've had... Oh, yes, of course. That's the way it is over here. We in the Americas don't normally do the kiss on the hand, but, well, he places his lips to it. He smells faintly of lilac.
Well, I had not seen you here before, and I had to ask.
Yes, I am newly to town, and I am... No. Suppose one can't call London a town, can we? The architecture here is quite lovely. It's good to see our ancestors have hailed from a place of relative refinement. So, what is it that you do? Are you one of the staff? Are you one of the...
I am a medium. I consort with unseen powers and spirits of the other side. Truly, yes.
How absolutely fascinating. There simply aren't enough mediums in these circles.
There are a few others, but between you and me, some of the others are just... Well, one does not like to throw around accusations, but some of them are frauds.
Now, how is she dressed?
She is dressed in kind of deep, not almost black, like dark blue. There's like lace on her sleeves, like trailing down.
So she's wearing a more upscale and slightly more colorful outfit than Lady Irene?
Yes. But it's still very much on the dark side.
Well, I am definitely pleased to meet your acquaintance. Who is that woman? And he points to Lady Irene.
Lady Irene von Watts. Another medium.
Another one? Ooh, simply like sparrows in a tree around here.
I know. She came to one of my tables once, although I have not had the good fortune of seeing her in action myself. I have not been in London that long, you see.
Well, I believe that you and I will cross paths again. Call it a little bit of masculine intuition.
I foresee we most definitely will.
Oh, I don't doubt it. After all, the spirits do foretell. Help yourself to whatever you want to drink. I'm going to politely take my leave.
She looks slightly disappointed as you walk off.
He saunters right over to Lady Irene.
There is this distinctive look when he starts coming over to Lady Irene, to LaCroix, with that kind of like, oh yeah, I got your number. There's just that subtle look from behind.
I must say, I applaud your fishing technique.
No fishing needed.
I beg to differ. Everyone else here is dressed like a peacock in their Sunday best, in their attempt to call attention to themselves, but you, by the fact that you have taken the exact opposite route, have become far more interesting.
Oh, it's old habit, actually.
I hear tell that you're a medium.
I am. I go around and I perform seances. I have a interesting knack to be able to look beyond, and mainly, this is going to sound strange, into the past of
A
people and
psychometrist.
objects.
Interesting. You're not simply one of the word boring ones. You actually have something that's relatively interesting. A psychometrist, I suppose.
A bit of this, a bit of that. I've been through quite a bit lately. The black is not just my usual affair, which it normally is, but recently a death of a friend that was close to me had happened in the past few days.
I'm sorry for your loss. I feel like a proper fool for coming by and digging up bad memories. Intuition is not one of my strong points. Have you attempted to contact your friend?
No, I'm afraid to do so at this moment. It's a transitory time, and I would be remiss if one of my other acquaintances, who is their grandniece, is in trying times right now, and I would rather wait until I have abject permission.
Lady Irene, something about you tells me that fear isn't one of your foibles, as it were. I think that refusing to use a gift that you may have is like a carpenter only attempting to build a house with one arm. It's unnatural and not very constructive. Do you see what I did there? Constructive house building? Apologies, I love puns. So, would you be interested in possibly giving a demonstration? Or do you need lights and low candles, mirrors holding hands?
I don't need any sort of, as they like to say, flim-flammery. And she says that a little loud.
I do hate it when people get ostentatious.
And
if you could be a gem, then, and I will be happy to pay for the privilege. He reaches into his jacket and in an interior pocket pulls out a silver flask that has a pretty staggering amount of detail and is covered with a number of symbols and etchings all over it that someone in the know might interpret as being various symbols of occult significance, and slides it over. What can you tell me about this?
before she even touches it, she kind of looks it over. There's just this... It's rather fancy. First off.
At the risk of sounding somewhat conceited, so am I.
And she does this playful kind of laugh. Oh, you do go on.
Oh, you don't have to flatter me. I actually loathe it. I In my circles, you get rather sick of hangers-on. You get rather bored of people that feel the need to talk about themselves. And that's my job.
And you'll
But,
see that she pulls up her hands and she's wearing gloves. And she goes to pull the gloves off. And she's going to touch this flask and see what she can see from this.
Okay. Please give us a roll of, mediumship.
And it's the green one, right?
Yes. Although if you roll the purple one, it doesn't matter, because we'll just roll the bonuses and we can just ignore them.
I'm going to push with my luck. So
Okay,
that's a lot of luck.
I'm going to say luck or pushing, because remember you can push
luck.
to re-roll.
Yeah, I'm going to utilize luck, so I'm going to utilize...
I live for the day I can tempt you into pushing a mediumship roll.
I'm so nervous to do it. And I believe that is... What is it?
So yeah, that would be...
50 points of luck?
Hang on, you rolled a 73, you need a 56, so that will be... whatever 73 minus 56 is.
Okay, so not as bad as I thought. So... we are down
I need a calculator around here at some
I
point.
believe that's 17.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So not as bad as I thought it was, so yes, I'm pushing to succeed on this.
Oh yeah.
Not
so
pushing, but that
yeah.
different words.
Yeah, spending the luck to succeed.
Mhm.
Okay. So as you focus in on this flask, as you sort of look back in its past, the glimpses of what it is and where it came from. It's nothing quite as clear as some of the ones you've had before. But, well, Zachary, what would she get? And it gives us a glimpse of where this came
How
from.
far back? Or is it an emotionally significant moment?
I'd say emotionally significant more than time and distance, but it's hazy and short. It's supposed to be like very.
You would catch a glimpse of a younger woman, maybe in her late teens, dressed in dark blue finery, evening set, bustle, the whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very pretty, blonde hair that's pinned up, captivating blue eyes, and she's drinking from the flask, and you can taste for a second the burn of whiskey, and then it's capped and handed to a version of this man who he's only in his 20s. In fact, he looks like he's in his early 20s normally. Now he looks to be the same age as the person who handed him the flask. And with a smile, he puts the cork on it and puts it back in his jacket.
Young woman, dressed in blue, blonde hair, whiskey.
Indeed. Well, I can see that you're not one of the... And he kind of looks back. I can see you're not one of the posers. Well, I definitely appreciate the demonstration. You have most decidedly alleviated my boredom. For your trouble and the effort. And he pulls a billfold out, and it is painfully stretched with English pounds. And he just begins thumbing some free and then slides them to her. There is probably at least 700 pounds there, because he didn't count.
Lady Irene probably notices that he did not count this, being from where she's from. And it's just a quick little, she has put the flask down. She has put the gloves back on. and she has pulled the money and put it in one of her giant pockets in her outfit. You didn't have to pay me, but I appreciate
Oh,
it.
I know. I again, at the risk of sounding arrogant, Lady Irene, I don't have to do very much of anything. What's the point of having money if you can't make someone's day? And you certainly made mine. I was terribly bored, and for someone like me, an alleviation of boredom is a priceless gift. Please, accept it in the spirit with which it is given. Spirit, medium.
Yes, yes. But what brings you to London? Is it just boredom?
Well, that is my primary motivator. However, I have it on good authority that the circles in London are older and a little more well established than those in America. Most notably of which I've been invited to join the local chapter of the Hellfire Club, although in my experience, the members I've met so far seem to be very similar to their colonial counterparts. Not They have great press, but the true events behind their articles are not quite as noteworthy as they make themselves out to have.
If you are truly interested in the occult and esotericness.
Lady Irene, have you ever been to an orgy?
She kind of, there's a little bit of a shock. No, I have not.
I've been to more than I can count. Have you ever watched two men beat each other nearly to death in a pit?
No, I have not.
I have watched several. I've tried every drug in the world that I can get my hands on. I've fucked anything that I've had the ability to. I've sat through orgies and watched men punch each other to death. I have had everything that I've ever wanted since I was 6 years old. Imagine a life where everything that you've ever wanted, every whim, every moment is yours without really needing to ask. Now, imagine if after a long enough period of time, you've come to the point where you want nothing. You've had everything that you could ever want, even on whim. So boredom becomes the true albatross around the neck of those that are born fabulously fucking rich. I find that the occult is the last thrill I have managed to uncover because it's the one thing that nobody knows anything about. I've seen and done enough in my time where I do believe the validity of the occult arts. I have sampled enough of its forbidden fruit to believe that it is a thing. Moreover, it's a thing that not everyone gets to experience, and I do so relish exclusive experiences. So, when I meet someone that actually has some legitimate credibility within these circles, I want to get to know them. I want to spend time. I want to absorb what they know and then perhaps even talk shop. I have a few little odds and ends of information I've picked up. I've studied the Greeks, I've studied the Latin, I speak 5 different languages almost fluently. I've read books and treatises on every subject I can get a hold of. This does make me come off as rather conceited, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But I will tell you something. You stick around me and my friends, and I don't think you'll be bored. In fact, I think at some point you might piss yourself from how scared you are.
Intriguing.
I'll
tell you what, Lady Irene, I will happily, should you ever want to invite a spectator, go with you, and who knows, maybe I could show you a thing or two that might surprise you.
Interesting. I only wish Sir John was still alive to meet you.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe that the evening calls for something to break up the tedium. I believe I'm going to buy this place, if only for a few hours.
Fair enough.
I just want to drink alone. And I mean, I have a better thought. One moment. Uh, Sir, and he kind of gestures to the barkeep.
Yes, sir?
Do me a favor. I believe, our host is in attendance. Sir Randolph or some such.
Yes.
Could you be a gem and fetch him for me?
Of course, sir, yes. And he disappears off and returns a few moments later with a slightly portly man with excessively large eyebrows matched by an excessively large moustache.
Sir Randolph, it is a pleasure to once again meet your acquaintance. I
Yes.
believe we were introduced when I first arrived.
Mhm.
Well, Sir Randolph, I will say this is a simply lovely party. You've outdone yourself. The decor is fantastic. The guest list is like fireflies to the flame of whatever. I believe I would like to have some time alone, though, so I have taken the liberty of setting up an alternate after party at the Savoy. I believe you and all of your guests would love going there. I understand this is terribly last minute, but I can compensate you for the time that you have left on renting this fine establishment.
Oh, no, don't worry, I'm not actually paying for it. It belongs to my, cousin Toby.
Ah, so this is a chance for you to shine with very little risk.
But, after party, did you say? Would be.
What is that, Sir Randolph? You are willing to accommodate all of these people at the Savoy? Is that not the most high-end establishment? Well, the least I could do, Sir Randolph, is assist you in making this evening better for everyone in attendance. And he pulls out his billfold and just begins counting off money.
There's no need to be quite so, there's no need for that, good sir.
Sir Randolph, would £10,000 be enough to accommodate your guests? And he hands him £10,000.
This is...
Lady Irene is just watching this and trying her best to keep her poker face.
Yes.
Well,
Sir Randolph, I desire to be alone, and I'm already here. I don't feel like going anywhere else, so if you could collect everyone.
Yes.
Yes. I'll take everyone with you.
Gents, come along. We are moving to the Savoy.
I will be along presently, and he raises a cognac.
Come with me. And as the slightly confused guests begin to depart, we return back down to a rainy evening in Portsmouth.
Come, Lady Irene, let's get to know each other.
So as the rest of the guests depart the party, leaving Zachary and Irene, Lottie, did you have anything else you wanted to check with Mrs. Braithwaite before?
I cut out right after I asked if there was anyone that she knew had been recently coming in and out of the apartment.
Oh, no, he has, doesn't really have many visitors. Someone comes by once a week to, clean the place. Other than that, no?
Well, if you could, I'm going to be contacting the police just out of courtesy, I think, for this man. I think it's an interesting case and how he died, and just in case there was any kind of foul play, I'd like them to have some kind of note or recognition of it. So, if you could just supply that information and name everything I've asked of you to them as well.
Yes.
That would be
Of course.
appreciated.
Of course, yes.
And if you need any help or assistance, the doctor who came by I'm sure he would be able to point you in the right way in terms of dealing with grief, but I know you've lost a husband, so death may not be unfamiliar to you, but seeing something like that
Oh,
can be
you know how
unsettling,
it.
so...
Oh, you know how it is. My husband drowned. Lost 2 brothers in the shipyards, 1 at war.
It's just difficult times for many.
Buried 6 children. Death.
Yes.
Death's rather familiar by this point, dear.
Yes. Yes, I'm familiar with that, unfortunately, so... Well, my hope is that both you and I don't have to deal with much more death anytime soon, so... we'll go about it. I'll contact the police, have them come out and take a look, just check things out just in case. I mean, floors will have to be scrubbed and everything if there's going to be a new tenant and what have you. Just the usual stuff. You're under no suspicion or anything like that. I hope you don't think that or think I'm prying too much.
I wouldn't ever lay a hand on him. I mean...
Of course.
He's a decent old guy. It was... I wish we'd met under better circumstances, dear, but...
No, most definitely. And if I do have anything else, I will either contact you or have the police contact you on my behalf. But I believe that's about all there is. I'm going to go and do some research, check in with the doctor. And if anything else comes up, you'll likely see it in the papers.
And she sort of shows you out and goes back to... You can, as you're making your way back down the stairs, you can already hear she's picked up her humming again.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'd head back. I would go home, inform my sisters that I will be missing dinner tonight, and do some research on the green flame, and then after enough time has passed, I would go check on the doctor to see about the autopsy, but I'm going to let enough time pass for an autopsy to properly...
As you return home, one of your sisters kind of waves a letter in your face. Lottie, this came whilst you were out.
Is
it's got London postmark. It looks fancy.
I'll snatch it and I'll open it.
And there we go. You should. I don't know if you want to read it or if you'd like me to read it. If you say.
I'll read it.
See you.
Let's see. It is addressed 4th December 1881.
Today is the 5th of December. Yeah.
Ah, perfect. Dear Charlotte Shaw. Hate that. I am regretfully writing to you to inform you of the tragic death of our mutual friend, Sir John Wallace. Who was killed in his home some 4 nights hence in some strange manner I do not fully understand, along with one of his servants. Howard Barnes of Scotland Yard is investigating, but he will tell me little of the case. Both Miss Carter and Mr. Porter have departed London, clearly greatly affected by the events of that night. As my father is currently indisposed, I am acting on his behalf in legal matters, and it is in that vein I am writing to you as a beneficiary of Sir John's will. If convenient, could you visit my offices in London to discuss the matter further? Otherwise, I am able to travel to Portsmouth next week at the soonest. I remain your faithful servant, Cecil. Amen. Well, my dear sister, I was going to tell you I'm going to miss dinner, but it looks like I will make time for dinner, as this may be my last night here.
You're going back to London?
Yes, well, there's
Can I see?
See London or see the letter?
The letter?
Oh, yes, you may. I would have read it aloud in front of her as well, but she can look at it.
It's very nice paper.
It is. Who is Cecil? I remember Cecil.
So Cecil is
Cecil.
like, I think you met You've run into him a couple of times. He's the son of the old guy who was Sir John's lawyer, who was, I think, briefly at one of the unfortunate parties you attended. Yeah, so Cecil's his son, who's like a lawyer in training and very poor at writing formal Victorian letters.
Perfect. Yeah, so I would get my sister the letter. Yes, I will go pack my things. I know I've only been here for about a week, but I do feel that I've shared with you a lot of information that I've learned, and we've all come a bit more at peace with what's gone on. I'm a detective, and this is a case in a family that I believe has been solved, and now I have 2 more to deal with, so I must be on my way. I mean, you understand. You paid for my college. You know this is what I care about and what I do. I hope that's okay.
She give you a hug. You must write every day. Every day.
Every day. Yes.
Wants to know everything you're doing, and.
Well, some of that is confidential.
Okay, everything is
I
not
am
confidential.
In that kind of field.
And,
okay.
Say hello to all your fancy London friends from us.
Yes. Well, it seems 2 of them have departed. I'll of course say hello to Lady Irene from you all.
I can't believe you know a real lady.
I do. I mean, she's rather capable, rather smart, rather inclined. I will talk to her. I will let her know that you all gave your best wishes, and of course, I will say there was an interesting incident today in town. If London has its own problems, but if Portsmouth ever gets too much for you and brother, dear sister, you're always welcome to come up and visit London as well. I can pay for post, or
if I get a day off, then yeah.
Travel fare. Or, yes, I know it's difficult, but I'll see what I can do. Let me pack. I have to pack. I have to look at an autopsy. I have to eat dinner. I have to read a book, and then I'll be off. And then she'll run off and start packing her things.
Okay. So as Lottie packs her things, Zachary and Irene, you alone at the bar. Well, did you keep any of the staff on, or is it literally just you 2?
No, I need the staff.
Good.
They're the ones that bring us food and drinks and attend to us. So yeah, they're still there.
Alright, so yeah, this stuff. More cognac, sir?
Please, Lady Irene, would you like anything?
Just some sherry, please.
Of course. Poison. Fancy sherry.
I don't suppose I need to say your best.
Pardon?
Well, when I say cognac and she says sherry.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I rather assumed so.
Yeah, excellent. Some people, I mean, assumption is the mother of all evils most of the time.
If you say so. Of course, yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, Lady Irene, as a fellow practitioner, or at least someone with a passing interest, tell me, how familiar are you with the works of Magnus and Agrippa?
Well, one of my friends actually acquired some interesting books and then proceeded to try and burn ourselves and the building down that we were in twice. That happened.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That must have surely been some inflammatory prose. I love jokes. Does she still have them?
She does, but I believe she is absconded away from London. I don't know if she's kept them with her or left them at the estate. I would assume she kept them.
Well, I certainly hope she comes back. Books that would drive someone to such ends certainly do seem interesting.
They do, indeed. I will have to warn you, good sir. There are some families that are rather dangerous in this kind of circle.
Oh, uh, yes, I've been navigating the tumultuous waters of social uh, backstabbing and morass of depravity for my entire life. Not that I've lived a fantastically long time, but it's what I was born into. And therefore, I am not too worried about the old families of London. A lot of people that are in these circles came from London and Vienna and parts from all over the world to America because they didn't want to be constrained by the cultures and norms of those places that they were spawned from.
It's true. That is true. But I have seen some incidences that have made quite an upset in London, and a particular family has seemed to be at the root of it. So I was just wanting to warn you.
Oh, what family?
I was going to warn you about the Belfonts.
Ah, Belfonts. I do appreciate the heads up. As a matter of curiosity, do the Whateleys have any presence here in the London aristocracy? I highly doubt it. They were an insular family from the northeast of America, but I always ask.
Keeper, would I know any
Um,
of this?
give me a credit rating roll, which is here sort of your social connections and standings of who you know and who you don't know.
I knew this was coming, and no,
It's not
I don't
ringing
know
any
this
bells
person.
with you now.
No, that family doesn't ring any bells to me, unfortunately.
Part of him sighs in relief. Well, I know that you and I are going to be the best of friends. I can already tell. And you've spoken of London being a very interesting place. And you've shown me an interesting evening thus far with your own talents. Would you be interested to see some of the things that I've seen?
I was just about to ask if you. In essence, I showed you a little bit of mine. Why don't you show me a little bit of yours?
That sounds intriguing and equitable in exchange. We must be away then. I'll call a carriage. I will take you to my suite at the Savoy, and I will show you a few things that I assure you you've probably never seen before.
To clarify, is your suite at the Savoy close to where you sent the entire rest of the party?
Yes,
Okay.
I sent them to the function hall at the Savoy because the Savoy, I believe in this time period from my research, was just built as London's most ostentatious and high-end hotel. He actually has the entire upstairs penthouse suite rented out for his own personal use.
Okay. So, as Lottie packs her bags to head to London, and as Irene and Zachary head to the Savoy, I think this is as good a point as any to go to break. And we will see you back in around, well, should be exactly 10 minutes time, but who knows when the mid-rolls I make, so around 10 minutes time. So, here we are at the Savoy Hotel, London. As downstairs, the function room has acquired an unexpected party in the form of Sir Randolph's guests who were moved here. And the sounds are spilling out into the night. People are quite overawed, but this is a new building, a very fancy hotel and a new sort not seen before in London. Bigger, brighter, altogether more splendid than the options that were on the market previously. So, this is working as good advertising for the Savoy, getting people interested. But as the party is in full swing downstairs, Zachary and Irene head upstairs to the
On his way up, he smiles and does a raise of a glass of cognac, which is somehow put into his hand upon arriving, to Sir Randolph. And he looks around. I'm assuming there's musicians. He turns to the now overwhelmed person who's required to entertain everybody and set this up. Could you do me a favor, my good man? Yes, I know. This is my fault.
Of course.
This is my fault, but it's great advertising. Could you make sure to have the flautist set up over there by that window? And crack it open if you could. I want to hear the music upstairs.
Of course, sir. Yes.
4, by the way. I require 4 flautists.
Right away, yes.
Excellent. Lady Irene.
Sir?
Oh, yes.
Would 3 flautists and a piccolo work?
Yes, those would work.
Very good. I'm afraid we only have 3.
A clarinet would as well, if you happen to have.
Yes, we can manage a clarinet. Of course, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. And he goes to the elevator, which is also a new thing. Top floor, Lady Irene, if you wouldn't mind entering.
Mm-hmm.
He presses the button for the penthouse, and he's stopped talking.
I'm fairly sure this lift comes with a person to press the buttons for you.
Yes.
Of course. He's smiling and almost seems to be vibrating with like a palpable excitement.
Lady Irene is very much observing. She's smiling. They have the little bit of chatter, but there is some silence because I believe both Lady Irene and Zachary don't care for small talk. I get this feeling.
Nope, at the end of the day, he actually prefers quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Are you excited?
I am. I'm curious.
I believe I'll be fulfilling my true passion, which is alleviating boredom. Now, if you'll follow me, the entire place is opulently displayed and decored. There's also, instead of suits hanging up on racks, he has high-end attire thrown over couches and chairs. There's probably 7 pairs of mismatched shoes by the front door that would cost an average salary person years to afford. And instead of walking into the place proper, he almost makes a beeline for the large double door windows that lead onto the roof of the Savoy. If you'll join me on the roof.
All right. To the roof it is.
And he hands her a red silk umbrella in case it rains. Now, you were goodly enough to show me yours, as you say, and it is only fair that I show you mine. This, incidentally, is a bit of an audition, Lady Irene. You'll see what I mean presently. And he goes back into his jacket and pulls out a small, almost a notebook, and it's wrapped in a thick yet soft linen as a protector. And he begins to unfold it and begins to read look at it. He pulls out some chalk and begins to trace a circle, lines and symbols on the ground. If you would be so kind as to stand within the circle.
She looks at him. There's definitely this distinctiveness, and then she steps in.
Brave too. And he steps within the circle as well and begins to call upon the faceless being.
As one does. Okay, how many magic points are you putting into this?
9.
Okay. In which case, please roll me a D100, and also, I believe it's a 1D4 here.
1d6 actually.
For loss
Oh
of
no,
sanity.
to cast is a D. I think to cast is a D2, seeing one is a D6.
Summoning is a D4 according to my book here.
Okay. Let's make it 10. That'll make it so it's only a 96 or above. Alright, so we'll just start with the obligatory sanity check for the casting. Boom.
It's not a sanity roll. It's just a sanity cost.
Oh no, okay.
So you
That's fine.
don't get to roll against it. It's an automatic loss of sanity for.
Well, this is new for me. I've never gotten to play around with the fell powers of Oblivion before.
And this is why one doesn't. Okay.
She is perfectly fine.
Yeah, just a little of your sanity draining away as you repeat these words from the notebook. You call out and reach out with all your power and your will and your mind, calling out.
And that is
the darkness.
a success.
And the darkness answers.
So he begins to chant and recite phrases in Latin and German, and he raises his hands to the sky and begins to trace gestures. His eyes close, and he's no longer even reading from the book. It's all from memory. The temperature begins to drop, even on the somewhat chilly London sky, and a shadow comes over the moon, and the sound of the pipes from below, the flautists, begins to rise up louder than they were before, so that they're audible plainly through the night sky. And then something begins to descend, a creature with bat-like wings and curved horns that come up and inward, a tail barbed and long, almost as long as the creature, begins to whip back and forth. It has skin like a bug and an ape and a slug have all mated with each other, long gangly arms and stunted legs, and its face is featureless. There are no eyes, there is no nose, there is no mouth, and it perches on one of the garrets nearby like a gargoyle.
And
I
Lady
do not
Irene,
take sanity for seeing this.
yes, you have already lost all the sanity you can lose for seeing this thing worn down over making the same mistake more than once, one could call it. But Lady
Mistake.
Irene, I am going to need a sanity check from you here, as someone is calling these unholy horrors down out of the sky.
And Lady Irene is as indomitable as ever.
That is
That
an
was
extreme
extreme
success, which I don't think. I don't believe there's any on a success. I'm looking at the right stuff.
Just now picturing her looking at it, it's like, is that all you got?
Well, exactly. Yeah, you are free to react how you choose. You've seen things. This is.
There's a little bit of shock. Then there's this look. What is that?
That is Chaucer, my dear, dear friend. Come down. And it hops down to the front of the circle. This is my friend and confidant. He's a great listener. His name is Chaucer. We've had a lengthy acquaintance over the last year or so. He's a friend. I have so few actual friends that someone that's willing to listen and absorb what you tell them is a rare and precious commodity. You seem relatively unshaken. This pleases me.
I have seen a lot living in London.
Chaucer, your manners. If you'll present your hand, milady.
And she does. The hands are gloved.
The creature cocks its head to the side and you hear a strange trilling, and then the barbed tail snakes up and, without cutting or tickling, coils around her wrist and brings it forward to its featureless face, and it gently places the front of its non-existent mouth to the back of her hand before releasing it.
This is amazing. Pleasure to
It
meet
is,
you,
isn't it?
Chaucer.
This is, as I said, this was an audition, Lady Irene. You have not only displayed that you have some level of skill in the esoteric arts, but you have also you've not let a little bit of a display in the things that I have seen and that I have some dominion over, affect you over much. So I don't know if anyone has formally made an offer to you yet, but I would like to place you under retainer.
Retainer? No one has dared offer retainer for my services
Dared.
before.
Choice of words is, I like it. So, in exchange for my patronage, I would ask that we continue to have correspondence regarding all things non-trivial. I may occasionally call upon you to utilize your gifts at functions if needed, or on a more personal basis when I require information that cannot be readily ascertained through books or first-hand accounts. You may see a few things that are distressing. You may experience a few things that are upsetting. And I'm sure, given your somewhat confident demeanor when I said things relating to strangeness and London being a strange place, that you will have some things to show me that I will find most engaging.
I believe my friends will love to meet you, Zachary.
Well, Chaucer is here. There's no sense in wasting his time. Chaucer, there's a gentleman downstairs, Mutton Chops, has the name Sir Randolph, and I give a very detailed description. His home is located at, I give a very detailed description. If you could be a gem, I would like you in 1 hour's time to perch yourself near his bedroom window. Here's the location for that. But remain silent, say nothing, do nothing, but I want you to merely wait. At some point, he will open the window or look out it. I want you to stand there until he sees you, and then you can fly off and go home.
And Chaucer inclines its head and then spreads its wings and takes off into the night sky.
Admit it, that's a funny prank.
There's this look on her face. It's like, there's almost this how dare, and then there's just this little bit of this smile that she's having a hard time hiding. That's terrible.
Is it really?
Only a little.
He was the one hosting the party for psychics and occultists and members of societies. I bet he's never seen anything that might remotely be true in his entire life.
In a
Now he's
weird
going
way,
to get a chance.
Yeah. You're giving him a gift.
I am. I'm a very gracious man, which you'll notice by the figure on your retainer. Would, I don't know how much I gave you previously. Would that much a month be a suitable retainer for you?
Keeper, I don't know how much,
I
700 pounds.
think that would be a reasonable retainer, yes.
would that afford a nicer place in London than I'm thinking?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
I believe the average amount that a day worker brings in London during the Victorian times is somewhere around 20 of back-breaking labor.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yes.
yeah, I believe that would be agreeable, Zachary.
Excellent. Well, I believe unless you would like to experience something that your Victorian sensibilities would remark as fairly scandalous, it might not be a bad time for you to leave. And he begins to undo his cravat and take his jacket off.
Oh my.
You are, of course, welcome to stay if you want to, but society might talk. And then there's that smile.
And she blushes, she smiles, and yeah, she does take her leave.
And as she begins to leave, you hear the sound of a jacket hitting the floor, followed by shoes being kicked off, and someone, perhaps playfully, a pair of trousers kind of flops to the ground in front of her on her way out the door.
And
Interesting friends.
as Lady Irene departs the Savoy, we return now to Portsmouth, to matters of autopsies and important detective business.
Lottie is like hunched over, like punching her heart, like, I feel like a disservice is occurring. Something doesn't feel right.
This prickle at the back of your neck that somewhere something awful is happening.
Something awful is happening.
But yes, so having received this letter, I believe you had intended to sort of follow up on the autopsy once enough time has passed. Was there anything you wanted to do in the meantime whilst you're waiting for the autopsy results?
I was going to just make sure I had tickets for a train, preferably like tonight if possible. I believe as soon as I could. And then once I have tickets and everything, I would go and stop by. I just spilled water all over my keyboard. We'll see if that's fine. It's fine.
Sure.
Yeah, it'll be good. I would basically just make sure that I have everything packed. I would have a book and just different things like that ready to go.
Okay. So you're able to get a late night train into London, and with all your belongings packed, if you stop by with Dr. Evans before you go? Is that it? Sorry,
Yes.
My headphones cut out for a brief moment there.
No, it's fine. I'm also like multitasking the fact that my keyboard is.
We can come back to you in a moment if you have to.
Nope,
if
that's
you've got,
fine.
You know, tragic
I
water
don't need it.
incidences. Blame the bell
No one
fonts.
needs a keyboard. Yes. It's drowning. I would give my dear sisters a kiss, say goodbye, grab my stuff, and I would bring it with me to the library and inquire about any books. I know Portsmouth obviously would have more limited of a library, but any books at all about any kind of alchemy, any kind of flame, any kind of ritual or thing like that, if I could check it out indefinitely.
Alright, give
That'd be
me a
lovely.
library use roll.
Will.
That king of all rolls.
I'll spend the luck for that. How much luck do I have? Yeah, I'll spend that. That would be 12 luck.
Okay, so if you pour through the shelves of the library, looking over chemistry, alchemy. There's a couple of texts. There's more text on the chemistry side. New discoveries of paints and dyes, and the fact that the world's about to get much more colourful.
Yay!
The wonders of using arsenic in dyes. It's good. It's a miracle dye. There's no reason this could possibly go wrong. But instantly you find a slightly battered-looking book, which is like a history of alchemy. Which covers all just a skim look at like the contents, covers various discussions of alchemical arts and there's a few crosses over with chemistry, but also discusses about the history of alchemists' goals in lead to gold, elixir of immortal life, understanding this, that, and the other. You know how alchemists be.
Cool. I'll bring it with me if they let me and just pore over it. Even if it doesn't provide any information, it'll just be reading for the train.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, you'll have time to give that a read on the train, which is leaving soon. But
great. I will go check in on the autopsy as quickly as possible.
if you stop by with Dr. Evans, he's coming out of the room, so pulling off an apron, going to wash some soot and ash off his hands. Detective. Didn't expect to see you here quite so late in the evening. You travelling somewhere? You look like you're...
Oh, yes. I got a letter from London. Unfortunately, I do have to depart with haste, so I didn't want to leave in the middle of something that you had called upon me for. So I just wanted to check in, see how the autopsy went.
I hope it's nothing troubling. That's
just some friends dealing with grief and potential upcoming cases. I think everything is settled here, and I'd like to get back as quickly as possible and get back to work. But there are pressing things here, and I don't want them to go unnoticed, especially if I end up in London and discover similar things are happening. I'd like to check in on what you find and stay in touch. I'll be writing to my sister every day, mandatorily, so you will hear from me.
Well, I will not ask you to write every day. That would be excessive. Keep in touch.
Yes, I will.
And
but yes, what did you find?
I don't believe I have your London address, but...
it's just a boarding house. My sister has all that information. I do just want to check on the autopsy and...
Oh, yeah, the autopsy.
Unfortunately, be on my way. I've got a train.
Yes, sorry, didn't want to delay. Honestly, a little baffling. The fire doesn't seem to... The most burnt part seems to be the upper part rather than the lower part, which is not what I would expect. The fire had caught a spark from the fire in his clothing or something. It almost seems like the head was the point where the fire began, as far as I can tell, but there's little that remains to be quite sure, and no sign, as I can tell, of any oil or fuel used to start it. But again, I am not an expert in such matters. Most of my autopsies are on factory accidents and drownings. Yes.
Well, starting from the head is still information. It does make the situation a bit more peculiar. I did not have time to call upon the police. If I told Miss Braithwaite that I'd be interested in her doing that, he He did say stop before
Oh.
he died, which I don't think is normally something people say when they accidentally catch on fire. So I do think it's worth further looking into. And,
I'll speak to Inspector Barker. I think perhaps
yes,
maybe we
have
can't
him,
put this one down as an accident. I don't.
Yes, have him keep in touch with me, and if I do need to get back, I mean, the trains these days aren't as bad as the carriage ride. So I'd be happy to come back if I need to. I've got a wonderful crew of friends who are familiar with the supernatural and could potentially look into this as well. So still happy to assist, and if anything similar comes up in London, or if anything, I've got many more books to research and refer to up there. And can I trust you with something?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. And I'll pull out that note from my pocket and I'll open it. And, yeah, this note. I took it from the scene. I would prefer you to not inform Mr. Barker that I took this from the scene, but it does mention a green flame. And is it in the same handwriting as his?
Yes.
Yes. It mentions
Green
a
flame
green
burns.
flame amidst other just random various acts of the day, grocery, what have you. It was peculiar to me, so I'll be doing my research, and if that reveals anything, I will let you know. And if you have any concept of chemicals or rituals or anything that would involve a green flame, do let me know.
I will do. Yes.
And
Well,
of course, if anything else like this happens, let me know. Just anything, let me know.
Anything. So people drowning on land, burning on land.
Anything of interest.
Such unexpected.
I'll begin to wander. At this point and solve mysteries, so I'm happy to come back and forth. And my sisters would appreciate a visit every now and then as well. So they stay so busy with work. I would like to be able to come and visit them when I get an excuse. So if you have any excuses for me, I will take them.
Sorry. Next time, you're always welcome to visit when you're next in Portsmouth.
Yes, thank you.
If that's not too presumptuous of me.
Visit you mean?
As if you were in Portsmouth, it would be to hear how the investigation's going.
Oh, yes, of course. I'd be happy to update you.
Yes.
I mean, as a doctor, it's important you stay abreast of that kind of thing, things to look out for in case there's ever any kind of... She obviously just, that was not... She did not clock that at all.
Well, you better be getting that the train will be going soon. I believe that the station clock here runs a little fast.
Yes, well, keep me informed, keep me updated, and I'll do the same for you, and best wishes that it was nothing. Perhaps a cigarette gone awry.
One hopes so, yes.
I will take off.
Okay, so as Lottie makes her train, probably arriving just in time as it's the conductor's going along the train, slamming the door shut. People
You must wait for me. I'm a detective.
Oh yes, of course, miss. Like opens up the door, helps her bags up onto the train. He shuts the door behind her.
Thank you.
And steam engine kicking out smoke as the train makes its way through the night northwards into London.
And I would read and probably fall asleep.
As your sort of head drifts down onto the book, open on a page discussing, the various importance of Mercury and both an astrological and a material concept. You're mindful with a strange dream. This flickering perception of this great vast space, things around you, moving, almost dancing. You can hear the sound of pipes, or is it flutes, this wailing, cacophonous sound. And a voice that sounds both distant and near, calling out, entreating for help, calling to you. It's muffled and distant, but for a moment I think it almost sounds familiar. And then in answering, you see this flickering green light. And you feel your vision disappears as this burst of green fire fills it, accompanied with searing heat and pain that scorches down to your very bones. And then you awake sort of with a start as the train is pulling into London. But I will ask for a little bit of a sanity roll there.
Yes.
And a listen roll, actually.
Okay.
The dream listening.
Sanity's first. And
Just a dream.
In a second.
You're fairly sure the voice you heard was Maddie's.
Okay. Good to know.
And so, yeah.
You
It's
can randomly
night
pop through. I don't think it'll.
It's late night when you arrive into London, but you still, I feel, have lodgings at the boarding house there.
Yes. I would go flop down, and I would also, is there... What flower do I think means something like I'm back, or hello again, or greetings, or something like that? Can I do some kind of check for that? Or pull from my knowledge of
Make me
Irene knows?
Make me an education roll here, I think, unless you've got another roll you can...
Education? Let me see. Let me see how good my education is. I'm whether or not I need to make an argument for something else. Oh, I spilled. Would you give me paper towels? Thanks. It's James. Where is education?
Hi, James.
Oh,
it should be up.
education's
It's up the top on the characteristics.
Yeah. Perfect. Hey, I got an extreme success.
An extreme success. Okay, so you know, there's not really a flower that directly says I'm back, but you can probably get the right flowers to get the combination of, like, returning friendship and that sort of matter. Although getting the flowers might be a little difficult, seeing as it is December, and a lot of them aren't in season.
If I can find some kind of flower of just friendship and tidings, that would be what I would do.
Yeah.
On just from the train station on my way home, and I would just leave it at Lady Irene's doorstep.
You leave it on the doorstep, purchasing it from a shivering little flower girl who's standing there in the cold night air trying to sell flowers to anyone who gets off the train. Like, daisies, miss, roses.
Ah, perfect. And I would buy whichever ones would be proper for that. Lady Irene, what would that be? Or just like a tidings from a friend.
Let's see. Thoughts are pansies. And let's see. I think off the top of my head.
Let's the appropriate flower. That out of the flowers
Appropriate.
available from
Right, I just didn't know if you knew.
a 24-hour flower seller in December. There was
Whatever
like a choice.
works.
There's a choice of like 3. Like, that one's not appropriate. That's the best out of the lot.
Yep.
That's what I would do. And I would leave it on her doorstep. I wouldn't knock, I wouldn't do anything like that. I'd let her find it naturally on her own.
Okay. And so, as night falls across London, and as our 3, well, not quite investigators yet, all of them, but our 3 people of interest drift off into sleep. Elsewhere in the city, poor Sir Randolph is racked with horror as he stares out of his window and sees the faceless creature looking back at him. What effect that has on him, we will maybe never find out. Or maybe we will. The poor traumatized man who got in the way of Zachary Carnegie. But the next morning comes and Zachary's breakfast is brought up by the hotel staff. And Lady Irene, you open your door to see a flower lying on the mat.
And Lady Irene would definitely pick it up and smell it, and she kind of understands what it means, and it's almost an immediate thing of walking to Lottie's door and dun, 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 dun.
Oh, yes, hello. Who is it?
It's Irene.
Oh, should have assumed. And I will rush and open up the door and just give a big hug.
Yeah, hugs all around. You're a detective.
I am a detective. Yes. I received word that Sir John died, and I made my way here on the quickest train possible.
There's definitely this look around, and she kind of leans in. It was the Belfonds.
Oh, I assumed.
I was there.
Can't help but feel some regret for not being there myself, but it is what it is, I suppose. He was an older gentleman and involved in quite the nasty business, so it comes for everyone.
Well, he was actually not as bad as we might have thought. I know we were all suspicious of what he was doing, but...
Well, it's possible he was implicated in the death of one of my family members, so yes. But what did he do that revealed himself to be better?
Well, you remember Leticia?
Yes.
She's the one that let the Belfonds know that most of the staff was going to be out of the house.
That's surprising.
Well, we were trying to make amends, and the Belfonds did what they do best. He died the way you expect.
And what of Leticia, the Belfonds? I mean, are they in custody? Are they dead? Or?
Well, the Belfonds escaped. You knew that was coming, right?
Yes, I just hoped otherwise.
Leticia, I believe, died. Am I right, Keeper? Did she die? Yeah. And, well, Maxwell now has an absolute fear of witches, and
understandably,
counts me among them, though.
Yes, but at least from what I've read, you did not leave town like the other two did.
Maddie needs to recover. I stabbed her. She finally just kind of says it. I stabbed Maddie. She was incensed. You know how she gets sometimes, and she was...
Yes, as she is wont to do. Well, she's hit you all with books and whatnot, so I suppose it's just even. But she's safe where she is now.
But I made the most interesting friend yesterday.
Who might that be?
He's American. He's very fascinated with the occult. He's shown me some tricks. You know, he seems very interested. I think he's well-to-do.
Hmm.
And
Well, I mean, if we're still dealing with the Belfonts, the more the merrier that are willing to help combat that. I mean, they've killed quite a few and one of our best allies at this point, so I'd be interested in meeting him. I was told by Cecil to meet at the Wallace estate to talk about the will. I'm not sure why they would want me involved, but
we've all kind of been asked. Perhaps we should deal with that, and then I can introduce you to my new friend.
sure. That would be fine with me. I do need to make a stop at, well, probably not the library, actually. If there are all of Sir John's books and his library still intact and acceptable.
Yes, there was no. Thankfully, Maddie didn't burn them all.
Perfect. Well, I'll need to look over those as well while we're there. So
that's understandable.
Yes. Perfect. Yes, we've had peculiar business as well, and as we go to the house, I assume we'd leave almost immediately. She'll inform her basically of everything that's happened in Portsmouth. Of she spent time with her family, but then after that there was this calling from a doctor, and this person burned, and she found this note of green flame, and now she's worried that not only are there drownings but burnings on land and stuff like that.
Burnings on land now? What's next?
Well, based on the evidence, either suffocation or inflation, I suppose. I don't know if you can die by that.
No. Remember the squid monster? The fog
yes.
squid monster?
Yes, so the next one would be Earth. And Lottie just looks very pleased and happy with herself.
Stop
Wonderful.
revealing my unconscious trends.
Wonderful. I will get a carriage for us. And she does go and get a carriage for them. And Lottie probably sees Lady Irene pull out the fat stack from her pocket to pay for this endeavor, because it's not Sir John Wallace's carriage.
You've been busy?
Yes, I have. It's funny how things go.
Have you changed profession at all, or is this all still from your medium work? You're not straining yourself, are you? I mean, that's mentally difficult business. I hope you aren't putting yourself in any kind of... And she just kind of starts looking you over and making sure you're healthy and okay.
I'm fine. I'm fine, Lottie. I have a retainer now. Someone has actually shown promise with my abilities.
Oh, well, wonderful. Yes, I'd love to meet them as well.
Oh, and on the way, we need to stop so that I can buy a flower for my friend and send it off properly.
As you should, as I did. And she'll smile at you. Yes, well, let's be on our way.
Okay, so were you heading over to Cecil's office or to Sir John's house?
Oh, I assumed one and the same. I would want to go to both if they're separate.
They are.
On the way, Lady Irene will be buying a purple dahlia with a black ribbon and having it sent over to the penthouse of the Savoy. No notes, no nothing, just... And that is a autumn and winter flower, so it would be at least be able to be found.
Is there a role to interpret that, since I'm assuming he's got several bouquets of flowers that were meant to be insults and hoping he wouldn't understand it from people in various social circles?
I've been using general education, although I think at this point I may actually have to add language of flowers as a separate skill to everyone's sheet, because It is featured far more heavily than I ever expected.
Did Sir John Wallace die in his house?
Yes.
Yes.
Because I would definitely ask Cecil
Extreme
to
success. Yes, I know. what
go
that
to
means.
the house with her, especially because there is some level of like detective work that she's gonna do about it.
Quite literally, an eel came out of his mouth. We understand what the cause of death is, Lottie.
Fine. We'll go to Cecil's and then we'll go to the house. I still want to peruse his books. I hope
Of
he would at
course.
least allow me that in his passing, and then we will meet your friend.
Okay, so you stop on the way to buy a flower and send it over to the Savoy, and then head onwards towards Cecil's offices over at Temple. Meanwhile, or a little while after, time being a slightly hazy concept here, at the Savoy, there's a knock on Zachary's door. Mr. Carnegie, sir?
Yes, come in. And he's lounging on a sofa, stark naked, except for a red silk robe. It's covering his sacred bits, but
Yes,
his bleach white albino skin and visible rib cage are plainly there.
Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Carnegie, sir, this flower came for you.
Oh, bring it here.
There
You
you
can
go.
avert your eyes and walk forward if you must. We're all born like this. Some are just better proportioned than others.
And he lays this purple dahlia with the black ribbon around it down.
He takes a moment and inhales the scent of it. And given the extreme education roll that I hit, Ben, if Ben remembers, the dahlia is a symbol of grace, service, and feminine beauty.
And uniqueness.
And he smiles. I highly doubt this came from Sir Randolph.
No, sir, it didn't say who it came from.
No, I was speaking to myself. You may go.
Sorry, sir. There's also someone downstairs who was asking after you.
Do you know who it was?
He didn't give a name. He said it was about a matter that would interest you greatly.
Fine. I'll put on trousers.
Shall I send him up, sir, or shall I ask him to wait downstairs?
By all means, please send him up. I don't want to make the trip downstairs if I don't have to. Putting enough effort into getting dressed, my friend. I don't want to exert any more energy.
Of course. And he departs, giving you time to clothe yourself somewhat appropriately.
When he comes up, the usual button configuration Victorian finery has is just open to the chest. He is wearing the jacket, the vest. He is wearing the trousers. He is wearing shoes, but he's not putting any more effort beyond the essentials. He'll have poured 2 glasses of cognac out, and we'll have one waiting by the door. He also has a Colt Navy pistol that's tucked behind the sofa near where the bottle is, so that if someone were walking into the room, they wouldn't see it, but if he were reaching back to grab a bottle, he'd have access to it.
Okay, so the correct word, the appropriate member of staff, the footman, that returns, and this time he's accompanied with a young man, probably early 20s.
It's about my age.
Yeah, possibly a little younger. It's hard to be entirely sure, and not quite as pale as Zachary, but still fairly pale. He's got white blonde hair, and is dressed very smartly in a smart suit, very well turned out.
What color?
Black, actually.
The usual.
Usual. And, yeah, the footman shows him in and sort of hovers by the door for a moment.
Yes.
Who was that addressed to?
The footman who's hovering by the door.
Oh, should I go, or?
Please.
Yes.
If you hear shooting, though, come running.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I jest. Terrible joke. But
And
no, really, if you hear shooting, you should come running.
I assure you there won't be any need for any shooting. Thank you.
It's a joke.
The staff
How
here...
did you people become the world's greatest empire without having a sense of humor?
That is a very good question. The staff here are awfully stiff at times. I don't know where they hired them all from. But thank you,
Behavior's certainly stiff.
Charles Belfont.
Zachary Alexander Carnegie IV.
Wow.
Shakes his hand in a very weak grip.
Not only did they name you Zachary Alexander Carnegie, they used that name 3 times before?
Yes, my family is not terribly original.
No, not indeed.
My mother ascertains that the reason that there have been 4 of us is it's a constant reminder to the family of the mistakes of the generation prior.
One of those sorts of families then, eh?
Yes, I suspect that there may be a number of fifths around here somewhere, but I've never met any of them.
Well,
Please, have a seat. The divan will be fine. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Sorry to call you on you quite so early in the morning, but,
No, think nothing of it. And he sits next to him.
I didn't get a chance to speak to you last night at the party before, well, I was going to say you departed, but it was rather more that we all departed, which is, I must say, quite the power move.
I get bored easily.
You should have seen
And
Sir Randolph's
he's
face.
he's not sitting across from the guy. He's sitting on the same sofa, well within his personal space. He's kind of lounged backwards. His legs are up. They're not touching, but they're very close.
Yes. Sir Randolph had an awful lot to say about you once you were out of earshot, you know.
I don't doubt it. I am a very noteworthy person.
Yes. He cast aspersions on your character, your family's character, and the character of America as a whole. You should be very insulted, I'm sure.
And despite all of that, he still did exactly what I told him to do.
Well, you know. Men like that, they like to bluster, but on the end of the day, they lack imagination. Or much of a will of their own.
The thing I found about the 1% of society is that there's still a upper 1%. And I just happened to place higher in the die roll.
Yes, fabulously
anyway,
wealthy.
It's good to meet you, and please do not mistake this as being cavalier or insulting. Why should I care that you're here?
Oh, well, only that I heard that you were interested in matters of the occult and, Hellfire Club and all that, and...
For a secret society, word of my goals to join it seem to be fairly widespread.
The Hellfire... Don't bother with the Hellfire Club. If their heyday is long past, and they are more obsessed with being a secret society than actually doing anything worth being secretive about.
And you bring a different option, I suppose.
Well, more of an option of, real power, real interesting things.
I've heard this song and dance before. Well, show me.
Show you?
Yes, you've come saying that there's a secret and that there's a a thing that your suggestion possesses that says that there's real power and real ability within your organization, or the organization you're referring to. I don't know if you actually belong, so show me.
All right. This won't be pleasant.
The best things in life seldom are.
Okay. Well, don't say I did not warn you. And he holds out his hand toward you. You feel almost this push against your mind. This alien force pushing inwards against your senses. And if you
Those
wish to
power
resist this, please give me a power roll.
Of course I wish to resist this. It's a competition.
Ooh. That is a failure against a success.
A very good success on my part. Oh wait, never mind. That was the previous sanity roll.
That was
the education roll. Was this? Yes, so the ED
yes,
roll.
no,
was...
yours is the failure here, I'm afraid.
Yes, it is.
And you feel the most unpleasant of sensations as your lungs begin to fill with water, bubbling up from inside you. And I need a con roll from you here as the water is just filling your lungs, your breath struggling to breathe.
I don't think he's gonna make this. He's not terribly
and choking and spluttering.
Yeah, that was definitely a failure.
Water
I will
coming
burn...
from the corner of your mouth.
Well, I've got luck. I can burn for that. Just double check, see how much it's gonna take me. How much luck are we talking for this?
To succeed on that con roll, that would be 37 points of luck.
Yep.
That would only bring you to a success, which is not what you need here.
Well, what do I need to have it be a success?
To have it match what you're actually after here, that would be 69 points of luck.
I do not believe I possess 69 points of luck, so I guess I will... Is it worse if I just have a success, or do I need, or can I only... is it...
The bar here is an extreme success.
Then I obviously cannot make that, so I will suffer the inevitable effects of drowning.
You take 4 points of damage, and this is just a briefest moment. It's lungs choking, and then you feel this grip release, and you cough up water, and as you go, lungs coughing, you see as this little wriggling, flapping fish coughed up from your lungs. I'm going to need a sanity roll here.
That's fine. Love this. I love this so much. I'm so on board for all of this.
You are surprisingly on board for all this, yes. I did warn you it would be unpleasant.
No. No. It's fine. I wouldn't have asked if I didn't want to see it, or in this case...
Are you okay? Hang on.
Oh no, I'm reasonably
shoves a glass
certain
of
that I'm
cognac into your
dying.
hand. I don't... Sorry, people... Sorry, I thought you'd take it a little better than that. Sorry.
My constitution is not particularly robust.
Yeah.
But you have indeed proved your point, and I'm very curious to see how you did that trick.
It's not really a trick.
Right, no, it's a spell. I believe you travel in similar circles to myself. So disparaging what you do by calling it a trick is fairly offensive.
Exactly. Thank you. Sorry, I've had that argument with my father a few times.
And who is your father?
William Belfont.
The
of
Belfonts.
Belfont Shipping Company.
I've heard nothing but good things.
Really?
Yes. Well...
Because I swear I saw you talking to Lady Irene the other night, and she will have a lot to say about my family, and
If there's
most of
anything
it
that
is exaggerated.
if there's anything that my life has taught me is that people who say things they're talking about you for a reason. It's because you're interesting. I'm interesting. You're obviously interesting. This is a good thing.
To interesting people.
And he
Well.
takes a very small sip because he's still coughing and choking.
Well, so now
I
you
lost
are...
more than half my hit points on that, so.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, he's barely clinging to, like, his consciousness right now.
Well, now you are hopefully sufficiently convinced of the reality of what I have to offer here. May I extend an invitation to visit my father's house out west of the city?
Of course. I would be happy to attend.
Good. I'll send... These are your permanent rooms, yes?
For now, yes, till I find better accommodations.
Well, I'll write to you here once I've made arrangements with father.
Excellent.
Let's do...
May I hold on to this? And he picks up the fish.
Oh, yes, I'm really not short of those. But, I look forward to seeing you at Belmont House sometime.
We most certainly shall.
And once again, I apologize for the fish.
My friend, I look forward to one day showing you what I can do.
And I look forward to seeing it, though I would prefer it not to be quite as damaging.
Of course not.
Good.
What's a little bit of lung water between friends?
Exactly.
Now, I will see. I have an appointment I must keep myself, and therefore I will bid you good day. Please do send me a letter when you're ready to
lectures
receive
to get
company.
to.
And he escorts the man to the door and then hands the fish to the footman. It's not that large, but could you see the cook fries this up for me? Make it elegant.
Yes, sir.
And he looks back before the guy gets in the elevator. I know it might seem terribly masturbatory to cook a fish that came out of one's own body, but I can't wait to see what it tastes like.
The thought had never occurred to me, but please do let me know how it tastes.
Oh, I will. Maybe I'll save you a piece.
It's not a very big fish. Maybe I'll try for an eel next time.
Let me catch my breath first.
And the footman looks increasingly awkward throughout all of this exchange.
Well, salutations, good day.
And to you.
And as they leave, this look of feverish excitement comes over his face, and he goes to the basin and begins to violently throw up the remainder of the water, and then he will rest the rest of the day because he is not looking very well.
All right. And as
This is going to be fun.
And meanwhile, or a short time earlier, Irene and Lottie arrive at Cecil Abernathy's office.
Lottie is once again crouched over. Something is wrong. Right.
You all right?
Yes. Oh, I'm quite alright. I'm just getting used to being in London again. It's a bit more... Well, Portsmouth is a port town, but still not quite as smoggy as London. Just getting used to it again.
Right. There's a gentle pat on the shoulder.
Thank you. Yes, well, you've already done your part of this enacting on the will, I suppose. All right. And with that, Lottie has a bit more confidence, and she'll walk in and.
Ah, Lady Irene, Detective Shaw. I'm glad you're sort of addressing Lottie for the most part here. I'm glad you could make it up here so fast. I only sent the letter the day before yesterday.
Yes, I am fairly good at being hasty when needed. I took the quickest train I could and headed out. So
I apologise for the vagueness of some parts of my letter. I wasn't sure what to say and what not to say, and it's been an odd time.
yes, well, it's not always necessary to say everything.
Has Lady Irene?
Necessary.
Sorry, has Lady Irene caught you up on what happened to Sir John?
For the most part, he died in his home, and the Belfonts had something to do with it. And yes, enough to where I know what I need to know.
Really know about the Belfont involvement. All I know is my father took it deeply to heart. Sir John has always been a good friend of his.
Of course.
He's getting on in his own years, so I have been left to handle matters of the estate.
Sure.
Once we dug out Sir John's will from his office. It's a little on the irregular side. I've been actually double-checking a few things to work out if it's even legal what he's trying to do here. There's not really a precedent for some of the terms of it. Well, to put it shortly to the point, it appears that Sir John has left his entire estate, that is the house in Gloucestershire, the house in London, all the contents, and all his accounts, between 4 people, to be held in a trust. And he states here that they should use it to understand matters both arcane and esoteric and combat the threat of unknown terrors, which there is little legal precedent for what counts as an unknown terror. So I really don't know how this one is going to stand up in the courts of law, should anyone challenge it. But...
well, don't see why anyone would challenge it. I mean, I assume that the 4 individuals are family, Maddie, and otherwise.
Well, the 4 individuals are, Miss Carter, Martha Carter, you yourself, Miss Maxwell Porter, and someone called Charlotte Taylor, who I have no idea who they are.
There's this look from behind Lottie. It's like she's standing behind Lottie, kind of. It's
No, I don't believe I've met a Charlotte Taylor. To be honest, the thing that bothers me the most is why, for what reason did he do this? Can we say that he was in proper faculties? I mean, I wasn't even here at the time of his death. Here I was feeling sorry for not being able to assist, and now I have part of his estate to my name.
My father witnessed it, and look, as I said, it's going to take some time to sort out the actual legalities here. I believe that without the will, the estate would potentially go to Miss Carter's parents, I believe.
I would assume.
But I have some work ahead of me to work out whether this actually can happen. But it seems that yes, he's left it between those four people. He kind of looks over to Lady Irene. I apologize. You were not named Lady Irene.
Actually, I was.
No, as I said, it was Charlotte Shaw, Charlotte Taylor, Maxwell Porter, and Martha Carter.
this information does not leave this room. Oh, all right? My given name, the name I was born with, is Charlotte Taylor.
Your name, Charlotte? We've both been Charlottes this whole time? I wasn't named Lottie. My name is also Charlotte.
I understood. I when I was young, I went by Lottie myself. It's the name
Are
that
you
my family.
kidding me? And Lottie just forget the will. Like, and you never told
Lady
me.
Irene is definitely looking. Well, Lottie Taylor medium didn't have the same ring.
Understandably so, but I mean, I cared for you, and we met and had tea before I even knew that you were capable of being a medium beyond guessing at first names.
Yes, but I would appreciate it if you two kept it to yourself. It could affect my reputation.
Yes, well, I do plan to do that as long as. Well, yes, that's fine. The will. Yes, well, I was planning on going over to the estate today, actually, to take a look at books, so consider the will already being acted upon.
I mean, yeah, as technically, potentially, they're sort of your books, I suppose. So,
I'd say so.
though, yeah, the legalities need to work out, but it's less of a division of the estate. It's more of an assumption that you hold it in his interest for what, as I said, dark unknown powers not established in the courts, really. But the keys, I can give you the keys. And he holds that. It's the front door of Grosvenor Square.
Great, I'll take
Miss Lady Von Watts, Miss Taylor, I'm afraid I might have to see some form of identification to prove you are actually who you say you are, pretending you're not.
I can provide that.
Good. There's a few things to follow up on here.
We're just gonna keep it quiet, okay?
Yes.
There's
Well,
yes.
I'd assume at least one of us would move into the estate. I both are living in a boarding house. Why not move in? With Maddie's blessing, I would want to set up shop until she's back and healthy and aware of the situation.
how is Maddie doing?
I've not heard from her. I wanted to wait until she was back before addressing this, her and Mr. Porter as well, but I've not been able to get in touch with either of them, and there is the matter of, there's the staff at the Gloucestershire house, and, well, technically all the staff in London have left or died, apart from one.
James still stands?
James is the only member of staff currently at the Grosvenor Square house.
Yes, well, dealing with what they've dealt with recently, I'm not necessarily surprised that they're gone for now, but as an acting detective and person of law to some extent, I will keep a watchful eye over the estate and make sure that nothing is changed or altered until they're able to act out their part and see to it that we do the unknown and terrifying. Or research it, not do. Probably don't want to do.
Research and protect.
Yes.
Yes. As for the matter of Sir John's death, Howard Barnes at Scotland Yard took the case. I know at the time you had a fairly solid idea. You seemed to think it was the Belfonts behind it, but the detective did say it was going to be very hard to prove anything.
People may
It's down
think what
as
they
a-
think.
An
I don't know.
unfortunate accident.
Yes, whatever it needs to be on the paper. I've been there and seen that. You write what you need to get through bureaucracy and move on. Well, whatever the case is, we had people who were present to know what happened, and to me, that's enough.
Yes, I mean, what James said and what you said after that night it sounded unbelievable, it sounded insane, but I've seen strange things. I've seen things that shouldn't be. And
Yes.
in Sir John's employ, there are things out there that people do not understand, and it should not be.
Agreed. Then write what they do understand, and we shall carry on. Lady Irene, I do believe I have some research I was interested in. We have a cellar of various wines and alcohols or spirits that we can partake in, and you have a friend that you're interested in me meeting. Perhaps we should summon him there.
Yes, I can write a letter.
Do you think he's capable of researching and protecting the unknown and terrifying?
Possibly.
Lovely. Let's do that then. Cecil, was there anything else? I suppose we can truly finalize everything once
Yes.
everyone is back in town.
Yeah. Obviously, if you ever have any questions, legal matters, I'm here currently. My father and I's practice is being paid on a retainer out of Sir John's estate. I believe that obviously is probably not being paid at the moment, but we can figure things out if you want to retain our services.
Yes, of course.
Obviously, if you've got your own lawyers that you'd prefer to use, I fully recommend that. And if it should come to any kind of dispute between the four of you, or the four of you and the estate, then I would recommend getting other
Yes.
solicitors
Paperwork.
in. But
Paperwork. We will figure it out.
Mhm.
I do want to keep you around. Thank you for informing me, and thank you for understanding. Money is tight for me at the moment. I've been on a bit of a reprieve from work, but we will figure out something.
well, hopefully you shouldn't have to worry about money too much anymore. Although, I mean, the estate's not hugely wealthy, but it's most of the money is tied up in the properties rather than income.
Lovely. Well, we'll see what we can do. Thank you for your assistance.
Of course.
At the end, Lady Irene does provide Cecil with information about the hospital that she was born in, because she was born in London, and there is record of her being there and being born and family and blah blah blah.
Okay. So yeah, with legal matters underway, where are the two of you headed next?
I think either sending a summons to Lady Irene's friend or simply picking him up on the way there, but ultimately the goal is the Wallace estate.
So, let's go and pick him up.
Sure.
He does have quite some style.
You talk very highly of someone you met just a day ago.
Well, style is one thing.
Yes.
And she is going to get the carriage and direct it to Savoy.
Okay. So you head up to the Savoy, and Zachary receives another knock on his door.
He's shaking and still recovering from the almost drowning on dry land, which was fascinating and awesome, while still being terrifying. He makes sure that he gets He makes himself presentable, and then, yes, who is it?
Sir, your fish? And also, there's 2 ladies downstairs asking after you.
Excellent.
Shall I show them up?
Yes, please.
And the footman heads down and brings Lottie and Irene up to Zachary's rooms.
I've never ridden in an elevator before, like yesterday. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah. I don't think I like it.
It's like the rattling.
Lottie is like holding on to the wall, like
It rattles upwards. It's one of those fairly slow ones, and as the footman brings the top, like the door across, with those like folding metal ones.
Yeah, Lottie's not having a good time.
And
I'm muted. One moment.
I can hear you.
Okay.
His curse of muting has returned.
While I was off, I was finding out a solution to correct my headphones issue, and I did it. I just didn't think I'd be pulled back quite so suddenly, so we're good. And again, I wasn't muted. The stream was muted, so the difference.
Yes.
So he's sitting in front of the same sofa he was on before, with the prepared chest trout on a plate. He sees his new friend and a friend of the new friend, and smiles and stands. Lady Irene, you're back with a friend. Pleased to make your acquaintance, Miss.
Detective Lottie Shaw.
Detective Shaw. Zachary Carnegie IV. Charmed. Please, if you would like to have a seat, you may. I'm just sitting down for a bit of lunch after a very interesting encounter I had.
Oh, more interesting encounters.
Yes. I actually met with someone earlier today. They came to pay me a visit. What was that family you told me about again? The interesting one?
The one that you should avoid?
Yes.
The Belfonts.
Yes. One of the Belfonts came. Charming young man stopped by. Apparently the word of my interests and proclivities has gotten around after I was invited to join the Hellfire Club, and he has said that there's an organization that he's a part of that's a lot more in the know. I had him demonstrate some of his abilities, and let me say that he is definitely interesting and not boring. In fact, my little repast here, and he points to the fish, was a present.
Present.
It's rather small for a present.
Well, considering where it came from, it's of an impressive size. I'm assuming it was seawater that his lungs were filled with?
No, it was not.
Okay.
It was. Right. It had a much more chalky taste. It was, and not salty. It was river water.
Well, the smell of river water may still be present in the room.
Do you have crabs inside of your lungs? Do you feel any pain? You might have crabs.
I double-checked. I have nothing wriggling in there now, but I was in quite a lot of pain, yes. Really drowning on dry land will do that. Absolutely fascinating.
There's been this string of deaths, all involving drowning on dry land.
Before we continue, Lady Irene, I'm going to go ahead and assume that your friend here is another curious practitioner, or are they not?
They help and assist. They have seen quite a few things now, and
in the room. I can speak for myself. And she just kind of like.
I apologize. I'm terrible with new people. My manners are lacking. Detective, the reason I addressed my question to Lady Irene is that A, I am more familiar with her, and B, the last night was just a wonderful time between the two of us. We got to know each other so well. And there's certain intimate things that I was unaware that other people may or may not know about the two of us.
I'm glaring at Lady Irene.
And Zachary is blasé to all of it.
There's a little bit of confusion there. It's like there's like a little head shake there. No. He's interested in the occult, Lottie.
Oh, what did you think I meant?
I'm just
by the
not
way,
thinking. I don't think.
I did get your dahlia. It is beautiful. The scent is invigorating.
I figured you would like that.
It's currently on his, as you can see the bedroom off from the main area. It's currently sitting on his pillow.
Anyways, the drownings. Yes, the Belfont family. All of that. I was just dealing in Portsmouth with a man who has supposedly gone up in flame. Spontaneous human combustion, but different than, I say your average, but not really your average spontaneous human combustion. So I suppose there would be an oddity.
Unless London is different from America to that degree, spontaneous combustion is not an everyday thing. This is the most invigorating trip. I was so worried that I was going to cross the pond and find more of the same. Outside of some of the natives, you don't see very much that's as intriguing as all of this is.
I do want to caution you. From my understanding, Lady Irene is interested in introducing you to the rest of our associates, and they have all recently or in the past lost people to these things that you are classifying as interesting and fun. So, though I'm not necessarily perturbed by it, the occult is not a game or a matter of frivolities. We've lost people to it.
I had an uncle once that choked on a fish. Wasn't deboned properly. Choked on some of the scales in one of the bones. And he takes his fork and daintily pulls off a bit of the fish and eats it. The occult is simply another lens by which the world can be viewed. It is no more a terror or horror than anything else that might kill somebody. Like this fish, for example. I lost an uncle, a dear uncle, to a fish bone in the neck. Doesn't stop me from enjoying the fish. Admittedly, the occult and magic and monsters and all of that is a lot more dangerous, but so is a gun, so is a blade. These are all weapons that one can still appreciate the beauty of, even if one doesn't use them to cut or shoot or kill. And you shouldn't deny yourself an aspect of experience simply due to it being dangerous. Did you know this fish came from my throat?
I assume that. Well, I hope it tastes good.
It tastes absolutely. It tastes delicious. A few spices and a little bit of colonial flavor. Would you like some? I assure you, I taste wonderfully.
No, I do not. I'm hungry at the moment.
Lady Irene, would you like some of my me-fish?
Lottie is just raking her head and just...
There's a curiosity, and there is a lean over to grab the fork.
No!
This look of just happiness comes over his face. Like this kind of conspiratorial light that he's sharing something with someone that can truly appreciate the moment. And
just a little. Not wanting to take, but curiosity is just there. Just
I smile and watch her eat the me-fish.
That's interesting. I mean, it tastes just like a fish.
An artfully prepared one, I might add.
Yes,
The chef
yes,
here
yes.
does wonders with fish that comes out of people's torsos, evidently. Which was a singular experience. I don't say I want to have it done again. However, I did require that he display. As you may have noticed, I don't take things on faith in these matters, and that was the method he chose to show me that he was legitimate.
I'm wondering if that's the only thing that entire family can do.
That's what happens when you make a deal with cult gods. I mean, there was that fish.
Dagon?
Gods.
Yes.
I mean, Dagon?
Yes, Dagon.
So, just to clear the air, the Belfonts seem to have focused around Dagon.
I'm sorry, which one's Dagon? Is it a Sumerian or a
It's a fish.
Celtic god?
Egyptian? Question mark.
There is a, I think, I can't remember if it's Sumerian or Assyrian Dagon, which somewhat matches up with the Dagon. As far as you're aware, there almost seem to be two Dagons. There's a mythological Dagon, which doesn't quite match up with the Dagon you've kind of read a little about in connection with the Belfonts.
Well, I can roll Mythos.
Oh yes, you can roll either Mythos or occult or history, depending on which Dagon you're trying to figure out about here.
Well, I'll do a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I'll start with the occult, and then I'll go to Mythos.
But yes, they seem to work with a particular Dagon, and yes, they have been basically.
None of that makes sense.
They've basically been drowning people that get in their way.
Well, that is certainly an interesting little spell. Look forward to observing it more in action.
Oh, my goodness. But the strong thing is me, Lottie, and several of the other people I'm going to introduce you to are persona non grata around the Belfonts.
So well, I should let you know a few things. The first thing is I have been invited to their ancestral home. They want to speak with me regarding some of the things that they, some of the talents they have, and to allow me a glimpse into their particular method of magic. I find this fascinating, and I have told them that I will accept this gracious invitation, if for no better reason than to view it firsthand. The second thing is that I was going to invite all of you.
I shot one of them before, so I will not be accepting that invitation.
Did they die?
No,
I believe it was.
I don't shoot to kill unless necessary.
Well, then we're even. You've shot one of their people and they didn't die. They tried to drown me and I didn't die. Level playing field now.
And they also killed Sir John Wallace.
I don't know who that is, I'm sorry.
I was going to invite you to his house, in fact,
Well, what
today.
good is that going to be if he's dead?
Well,
My God. Lottie just gets up and starts like she's just it's ridiculous.
Well,
I left my family for this.
It's actually a fantastic bit of knowledge, but we've, in essence, inherited his place.
Oh.
Yes, we're going to make an academy of the occult and protect people. But also
A society of our own, if you will.
Secret society.
Yes.
Positively intriguing. Isn't it odd how death often causes people to move up in the world?
It's rather strange. It is. Rather dark part of social climbing.
Indeed.
But yes, we were going to go over there and peruse his bookshelves. Weren't we,
Wow.
Lottie?
yes, and Ideally, we can call upon the others and hopefully have them join us there. And I've got some research to do about. Well, I suppose you're someone seeking oddities. Do you know anything about green flames?
I don't know. Let me see what I know about green flame.
Please, give me a mythos roll.
I do not have a lot in mythos yet.
That's probably for the best.
I say yet.
But yeah, Lady Irene is just looking at Lottie, and there's kind of this look of, isn't he fun?
How much would I have? I could pump my luck into that to actually make that.
You rolled a 62 and you need a 5.
And I have 60 points of luck, so would that knock it down to 2?
I mean, if you wanted to put that much luck into it, yes. You can spend as much luck as you like.
I'll wait. I'm gonna need it to survive later.
How dastardly. I was about to lose my mind.
But yeah, Lady Irene is just looking at Lottie with this, isn't he great kind of look.
Lottie is not. She's very stone-faced. She's trying purposely to not be easy to read. You can tell that you like him. But she's like,
could I attempt a psychology roll to see Lottie's current mindset?
Yeah, get a read on her.
I'm gonna do that too.
Is there a combat for that, or is it just a straight whether they succeed or fail?
If you're trying to sort of, are you trying to sort of hide what you're feeling here?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not particularly good at this anyway, so.
In which, no combating roll is required. Neither of them can get a good enough read on you.
Yeah, we both failed.
I'm just here and sitting and smiling. I mean, obviously, I've been a little bit perturbed because it's just kind of overwhelming to come back and just be thrust into this. But I think that's the read that they would get is any upset that I have is just this is a new person and this is a lot of new things. And
well, Zachary is a little bit offended that it's not directed at him, but he does offer his usual smile. Well, when do we set out? Do we have enough time for lunch?
After you finish your fish, I suppose. I mean, we were headed there now. We have a carriage that.
Oh, I'm done with it. Besides, one should not eat oneself too much in front of the company of ladies.
Sure. I will go check to see if the carriage is ready. Lottie will just leave.
We'll take my conveyance. We don't need a carriage.
All right.
Okay.
It's the least I could do for you, providing me a wonderful afternoon out and about.
Okay. Well, in that case, as the three of you prepare to head over to Grosvenor Square.
It should be noted his conveyance is a prototype Benz Phantom that is just now on the
Have you hired a man with a flag?
Yes.
Good.
And his personal driver will be making an appearance. He does have a driver.
Make sure you very slowly make your way over to Grosvenor Square.
Yep.
Drawing a lot of attention. But with that, I'm afraid we'll have to wait till next week.